Hello there, and welcome to this episode of the Movies in Focus podcast. I'm Niall Brown. Neil Marshall's Compulsion is not only a homage to the blood-soaked Italian giallo, but also a throwback to the kind of erotic thrillers that Hollywood churned out in the 1980s and 90s. Think Dario Argento meets Brian De Palma. Starring Anna-Maria Sieklucka, Charlotte Kirk, and Zach McGowan, the Malta set pick is a twisty and turny thriller that throws in a lot of left turns, and it will keep you guessing until the end. Compulsion's writer-director, Neil Marshall, returns to the Movies in Focus podcast along with the film's star, Anna-Maria Sieklucka. They discuss the throwback nature of the film, filming a tale with such complex characterisation, Compulsion's pivotal and very bloody standout sequence, and much, much more. And, as always, I hope you enjoy what we have to talk about. Hiya, Neil.
Hi there, how are you?
I'm all good. We spoke about a year ago when you were publicising Duchess, and one of the
Yes.
last things I asked you was, what have you got next? And you said a Brian De Palma erotic thriller. And I said, oh, that sounds interesting. And here we are a year later talking about said film, so it's quite
Here
interesting.
it is. Yeah. So, have you seen it?
I have, and I
Okay.
loved it. Bizarrely enough, relatively recently, I rewatched Basic Instinct, and I was talking to people and said they really don't make films like this anymore. And lo and behold, a week later, I get your film, and it really is that 80s, 90s style erotic thriller. That was presumably, obviously, your intention.
Uh, that was absolutely the intention. That came around from a conversation with the distributor about how much we loved those kind of films from the 80s and 90s, the Basic Instinct, the Fatal Attractions, all of those kind of films, and how they didn't make them anymore. And it was like, oh, so there's kind of a gap in the marketplace. Because I talked to a lot of people who said, yeah, those movies are great and nobody does them anymore. So I kind of set out to give it a go. But then at somewhere along the way, I kind of fell in love with watching giallo films and thought, how can I combine these two? Because they're kind of erotic as well and very stylized. And since I was going to shoot it kind of in the Mediterranean and that kind of part of the world, it was like, can I make it like a giallo film as well? So all of these kind of ideas came into being in that project. Yeah.
And that's, I mean, even from the opening, that the opening, it is very De Palma-esque with the voyeurism and that style, but there's the music as well. It gives it that Italian feel, which it's really
Yeah.
a great and brutal vibe from the very start. I mean, that shower sequence is very violent. Did
Yeah.
did you want to push the audience with going laying out your
Yeah,
stall?
100%. I just thought I thought it'd be interesting to see a guy getting the slasher victim be a guy for a change. I thought that'd be a nice twist. And so yeah, I wanted to play around with those conventions. Certainly it required there's a certain like a checklist of things for the Giallo thing, and one of them was like POV shots, razor blades, black leather gloves, all that kind of stuff to get in there. So I wanted to put that in there. And then the De Palma thing, obviously there's a lot of POV, a lot of his style in there. There's a lot of the I don't know, it's like all sorts of things thrown into the mix because I didn't really want to repeat myself. I don't do an awful lot of sunny films, and then suddenly with Duchess and this one back to back, it's like films set in sunny locations, which I'm not known for. Most of my stuff is really dark and bleak and rainy and all that kind of stuff. So it was nice to get to a nice location to make a film.
Well, I was actually going to ask you about that because you seem to be a director who's really pushing himself out of his, I'm going to say comfort zone, but it's possibly not the right phrase. But with Duchess, with this, even The Reckoning, which was it had horror elements, but it wasn't necessarily a horror film. Is that something?
Yeah.
Obviously, you're a big film fan. Are you looking to sort of tick different genre boxes?
Absolutely. I don't want to kind of repeat myself, and I don't really want to get pigeonholed. If there's one thing that links my work is like I try to get action in there somehow, because I just love doing action stuff. But I don't really want to just do the same kind of horror film every time, or this is more of a psychological thriller with horror elements to it or horrific elements to it. And The Reckoning, as you say, was like a historical thing with horrific elements to it. but it's just it's interesting exploring new genres each time, and because my love of cinema isn't just specific to horror. It's like I love westerns, I love musicals, I love giallo, I love sci-fi. So the work that I do and the films that I make, I want to encompass all sorts of stuff. So I have things from other genres I still want to do.
And when you're as a film fan and somebody who watches films, you obviously sit there and go, you're watching an erotic thrill and go, I want to make that. What is then the impetus for you to sit down? And I don't want it to be one of those questions where do your ideas come from, but at what point do you get that urge to go, I'm writing an erotic thriller or I'm writing a crime film? Do you have different elements that you're already thinking, or have you got different pieces that you pick and then put within a genre?
They kind of evolve. Like it never comes fully formed. It evolves a little bit. That you have a basic idea of the kind of film you want to make and where you're going to set it and what could it be about. And it comes from discussions with other people and suddenly it's like, oh well, what if there's like, two houses next to each other and it becomes like a voyeuristic thing, and how can we do something with that? And who are these characters? And it just kind of it grows and grows and grows from there. You start once for the initial ideas then become like a list of ideas, and then you put that list in order, and then it becomes like a bullet point thing, and then from there you can expand to make an outline, or you expand it into the script, and you're just working your way through your list. And ultimately you're just trying to get that first draft out, and then you can really start working on it once you get the first draft out, because that's just I mean they call it the vomit draft, but it is just like just throw all the ideas in there. It doesn't really matter if it makes much sense for now, but because you're going to write it and rewrite it and rewrite it and rewrite it before you ever shoot it. So but it's just getting that first draft out.
And I mean, one of the things, the standout scenes in this movie is there's a sequence that comes at the midpoint, which I've
Mhm.
spoken to Zach and I've spoken to Charlotte about it. So I'll hear it from the horse's mouth where they got the script and it was, I plan to shoot this 10-minute sequence in a oneer. And talk me through the process of that very complicated scene, which is sort of the crux of the movie. How did that come about and how did you then plan that?
Well, I knew I had like a good opening sequence, and I was like, well, how can I kind of top that? But in the script, it was like one line of description in the script. It didn't really say much at all. It was like, they fight and there's a murder takes place. And I don't want to say who gets killed or what, but somebody gets killed. And during one of the very early meetings, I sat down with the stunt guy, and we were working our way through the script, and we came to this bit, and he said, "Okay, for this sequence, do you want, like a 10-second fight sequence?" And I thought about it for a while and said, no, I want it 5 minutes, and I'm going to shoot it in one take, and we're going to do all the blood practically. So yeah, that's the challenge. And so they took that away, and I knew certain things would have to take place. One is we're filming on a kitchen floor, which is all marble. I was like, as soon as that blood goes out on that floor, it's going to become like an ice rink. So we have to choreograph this so that everybody's kind of crawling around on their knees. I want it to look messy. I want it to look like people are slipping and sliding in the blood, so that by the end of it, everybody's covered in blood. Because we're doing all that practically. And how are we going to do all that practically? That was another challenge. And so, the one ultimately what it ended up with was they came up with a fight sequence that worked for me. I worked with the camera to see, this is going to work within the frame. It wasn't going to require much in the way of complicated camera moves, but we needed to keep everything in camera all the time, despite all the moving around. And so I just wanted to make it as brutal and realistic and gnarly as possible for what was happening on scene. And it was like, okay, when somebody's got their adrenaline up, this would take quite a while. So and so yeah, so I just kind of went for it, and we rehearsed it, um, offset, and then finally on the day of filming, we did a couple of rehearsals, and then kind of decided we're going to go for it because we knew we were only going to get one take. Like, because once the blood was all over the floor and all over the actors and everything, it was like it's going to take 2 hours to clean up, and we just don't have the time. So we have to commit. And everybody, put 200% into it. The blood flow worked perfectly, and and it all came together. And so the only thing that we added in was CGI, via CG was the knife blades because obviously we couldn't stab somebody for real. But yeah, so it's a brutal stabbing, and I'm very proud of it.
It's a fantastic sequence because it occurs and you think it's over, or you expect it to be over, then you think it's over, and then it continues for another 5 minutes. And it really, you are sitting there going, oh my God. And again, much like you said, you can imagine that's how I've never killed anyone. Hopefully I never do. But that is what sort of probably stabbing someone to death in a kitchen is like. It's not clean and simple or like you normally
Yeah,
see in the
it's
films.
messy. It's just totally messy, and I wanted that sense of messiness. I wanted the audience to feel uncomfortable with it because it was just like, oh my God, this feels like we're really seeing it.
And when you've come up with this idea and you speak to the stunt guys and you speak to your camera crew, do they ever try and talk you out of it and go, well, Neil, this might be a lot of setup. Does somebody go, there's probably an easier way of doing it? Or do they go, yes, Neil, that's fantastic and go with it?
They say yes with hesitation. They kind of go, okay, we'll take that away and think about it. Holy shit. So, but nobody says, oh no, we can't do that because it's like, well, I know we can. It may be difficult, but I know there's some way of making it work. Now, maybe my vision has to be compromised, or maybe it doesn't. In the end, it wasn't at all. If anything, it was enhanced by what the actors did and what the effects guys did. But nobody says no. They just kind of go away and sweat a bit and come up with the answers.
And I mean, like I said, it's a fantastic sequence. But another thing that really stood out for me in the film is the soundtrack. It really does have
Mm.
that 80s synthy score. How did
Yes.
that come about? And was that something that evolved, or did you think of that from the beginning?
Well, just from watching all those kind of movies, especially the Argento stuff and the Italian movies, was they had those kind of very 80s score. And so, that was the challenge I posed to Paul Lawler, who did the soundtrack. He'd just done an amazing soundtrack for Duchess, which is a kind of very different, kind of funky, jazzy kind of thing for that. And so I said, well, I've got a whole new challenge for you. And so, have a watch of these kind of things. This is the kind of thing I'm after, that 80s sound, that 70s, 80s sound, and he delivered it 100%, and he came up with this crazy synth score, and it just feels great because I think certain films I love a big orchestral banging soundtrack in that way, but other films the whole synth thing just gives it a different feel to it, and this is what I wanted.
I mean, it really would be great sort of music to be sitting on and working to because it really is so evocative and just that
It
ambient
is.
vibe.
Yeah, it is a great score to listen to for sure.
Is it going to be released on CD or vinyl, or is any intention of
I
that?
don't It's definitely being released, and I think it might be released now. um but you'd have to find Paul Lawler on either Instagram or whatever, and he's in charge of its release. I couldn't t exactly tell you where it's coming out, but it is coming out. And if it comes out on vinyl, I will be getting a copy, but we'll see. We'll see.
I will be too. Um,
Yeah, I mean, all these soundtracks, like if I've been very lucky with some of my films, and I have CDs. I have a vinyl of Descent, but that's it. But yeah, if I can get CDs or vinyl of them, yeah, I absolutely want that physical media for sure.
can you never go to the composer and just go, "Hey, can you burn me a CD of the score?" Is that not something as the director you can do, or
Well, I mean, I suppose I could, but I just don't know if any of them have CD burners or anything like nobody does that anymore.
that is a fair point. Yeah, sort of even Blu-ray players are hard to get these days.
Yeah, they are. I mean, yeah, I mean, I suppose I could try and do it myself, but I wouldn't know where to start. But
Yeah.
yeah,
But no, I'm just curious because, like I said, it's a fantastic score and it's one that I think you could just,
I mean, I think it would be more fitting to have it on vinyl. I feel
yeah.
I'd really like the sound of it on vinyl would be wonderful.
And when you write, do you write to film music of a genre, or do you just sort of sit down in silence?
No, no, I make myself a playlist. It depends on if there's a certain soundtrack that works, or I'll make myself a playlist of the type of thing. And so for this, I had a whole playlist of synth stuff that fit the mood to try and create that atmosphere. But yeah, I write with that. It's kind of reverse engineering of taking the music that creates an atmosphere and trying to implement that atmosphere into the thing you're writing. Um, so using what the soundtrack was meant to create. What's funny is that when you come to writing an action sequence and you start putting action music on and you want to start typing faster because you're trying to keep up with the tempo, you're trying to keep up with it and write the action as fast as the music's going, which you can't do, it just makes a mess. But it's a nice theory.
So you're going through like the Michael Bay soundtrack collection as you're writing an action sequence or something
Oh
along those
yeah,
lines.
the steam coming off the keyboard because I'm typing so fast.
I mean, we've talked about music being a character in the film, and obviously you've got the actors, but Malta itself is a beautiful location. How did that come about, and what was it like filming there as well?
It was my first time filming in Malta. I mean, Malta has a very long history of movie making there, and I'd always wanted to go and film there. And so yeah, it just came about. The co-production company was there, and um, the producers did it, but ultimately it was like, hey, how do you feel about filming on Malta? I said, that sounds great. Let's go and check the place out. And it wasn't written to be set on Malta. It was written to be set, in the south of France or in Italy or wherever. It didn't really matter as such. It was just on the Mediterranean someplace. And when we went down to Malta and we first started scouting for locations and we were looking at these villas on the coastline, the kind of very modern looking houses and all this kind of stuff. And we couldn't quite find anywhere that really worked. But then I got shown these very Maltese, this particular kind of architecture in Malta, and I said, let's just embrace this. Let's go Malta with this and have it set in Malta as well. And that just made things so much easier because we just didn't have to hide anything. It was just like, right, we're in Malta. This is it. And so I say it has a specific style to it. It was a beautiful place to film. It's very warm. Had an amazing crew, just the loveliest crew. And it was a mix. We had a crazy mix of locals from Malta. We had some Italians come in. We had some South Africans come in. But everybody like just gelled together and just created a fantastic atmosphere. It was such fun. It was so much fun that like every time there was a break or a weekend or whatever, we all just hung out together still. We had barbecues and all that kind of stuff. And it was just like we didn't want to go and nobody wanted to go home and live their normal life. They just want to hang out with the crew. It was awesome.
And was it a long shoot? How long did you spend there?
Not long. It was 5 weeks filming. We had about 4 weeks prep. So, I was down there for roughly, 2.5 months.
Which in that weather just must have been great no matter what, even though you were
Well,
working.
thankfully it was early in the year, so it was sunny, but it wasn't too hot. Because when in the middle of summer there, it's just stiflingly hot. So yeah, we got lucky. We had the perfect thing because we had the right weather and the right temperature.
Well, I mean, again, like I said, Malta and the weather just really makes it this sort of luscious film. And although it's a bit sort of sleazy on one side, there is this
Mm.
sort of holiday beauty to the other side of it, which really sort of works as a good contrast.
Absolutely, and Ali RDP is like give it this beautiful kind of rich color palette. It's yeah, it glows. It really glows.
And I mean, once you've done, obviously you've done your crime film, you've done this, which is your erotic thriller giallo. What's next for you? What have you got coming up?
I have a World War II alien invasion thing that I'm doing next, which is kind of like Stranger Things meets Goonies set in a Cornish fishing village. Um, I have a horror western I want to write, but I'm also focusing on this slate of action films. I put together a company called Art of Action, and I really want to focus on doing action stuff because, to be honest, it's like that's all I ever wanted to do was action stuff, and everything else along the way has been a lot of fun, but a little bit of a distraction from getting into what I really want to do, which is just to like have fights and action and blow shit up and car chases and all that kind of stuff. Because action stuff is the most fun to direct.
Well, I mean, even going back to Dog Soldiers, as much as that is a horror film with werewolves, it is very much kind of the aliens vein, where, you could
Oh
take
yeah,
werewolves on.
Absolutely. Well, Aliens and Predator were massive influences on dog soldiers. Absolutely. It was like having military and horror combined, you suddenly get the opportunity for action for sure.
And your action slate, what are you developing? Are you going, presumably you are going to direct, are you going to produce as well and sort of shepherd other films through production?
I guess once we get up and running, then that's a definite possibility. For the time being, it's myself and another director, JD Duffield, and we are developing our own films. Which, she has one that she's going to write and direct. I'm going to write and direct another, but we'll probably like co-write each of them, and we'll be around to sort of like I might be her second unit director and vice versa. So it's very much a mutual collaboration of pooling our resources. Like she comes very much from an action background and martial arts and all this kind of stuff. And so yeah, we just want to we'll put all that together and just make some great action movies to get off the ground. And then who knows, maybe we'll produce other people's films or whatever. I'm not quite sure. Let's just get the first two done first, and we'll see.
Sounds good. And these are going to be based and filmed in the UK, or do you plan to do further afield?
They're going to be based out of the UAE, so like Abu Dhabi is the main focal point for the productions. Although they're kind of UK UAE co-productions in a way because of us. But yeah, that's the plan to shoot, and they were chosen because they're kind of both set in hot countries. So although they're very different films.
I really look forward to it. Like I've probably said to you before, I'm a huge fan going all the way back to Dog Soldiers and everything else that you've done, including Compulsion, which, like
Thank
I
you.
said, I had a blast with, and it really was that type of film I haven't seen in 15, 20 years. So it's great that somebody like you is making them.
Well, I try, and I know that there's a fan base out for them somewhere, so hope they appreciate them, and yeah, I'll keep on doing the same thing.
And I'll keep watching them. And no, thank you again. And hopefully, in a year or so, when you're out selling your next action film, we can
Yeah,
do this again.
absolutely, that'll be awesome. All right,
Cheers, Neil. Thank you.
thank you.
And now for my conversation with Anna-Maria Sieklucka.
Hello,
Hi, yeah, Anna, or is it Anna Maria? Which do you go by?
Anna Maria, but you can call me Amma.
Okay, I will call you Amma. Thank
Thank
you for
you.
taking the time today, Amma.
Thank you so much.
And I mean, it's great. I've been able to talk with Charlotte Kirk, Neil Marshall, and Zach McGowan sort of about this film. So it's also great to talk to you as well because it's a film I really enjoyed. So it's good to be able to talk to the people behind it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm so happy that you joined it.
And sort of going the whole way back, how did you get involved in Compulsion?
So Charlotte wrote an email to me that she found me, and I'm gonna be uh, the best option from her side to play the role of Evie. And then I had the Zoom call with Nir and the producer, and he told me about the script, what he wanna do, and I read the script, and immediately I called him back and I said, I'm all in. Let's do this together. Because I deeply knew inside of me, I had that intuition inside of me that I'm gonna share my acting stuff from different perspective, that this role is so complex that I can play a lot and show a lot to the audience.
And it really is a very complex role. And again, without getting into too many spoilers, your character goes through a lot of changes throughout the film. And as an actor, how do you prepare for that? Is it all in the script, or do you go away and do your own work aside from that?
Of course, I need to do my own work inside of that because I need to understand the character. I need to know what was before and what's gonna be after, and what is in the middle when she stays alone. And the the most interesting thing in this role was her mental health issues, and that was very challenging to not showing everything from the beginning, but to build it, and to express myself as Evie from different perspective, different emotions, to show her like a little girl, very sometimes shy one and delicate, but also in the other side, show her power and who she really deeply is.
And I mean, that must be quite difficult because, like you said, there is, when she's first introduced, there is a childlike quality. And then as the film progresses, she becomes more assured until things progress further. So when you're shooting that out of sequence, which I presume you did, how do you keep track of those emotional beats?
That's so challenging because you need to be so focused and you need to understand clearly your character. Because, as you know, we do not, as you said also, we do not filming chronologically, right? So, because it depends of the location and other stuff. So, every time when you are on the set, you need to know what was before and what's going to be after to be so deeply into exact emotion. So you that's also challenging for you as an actor. That was challenging for me as an actress because every single moment I needed to stay so focused to be prepared um, of everything. What was the scenes about from the emotional perspective?
And obviously, there's a huge emotional sort of arc that you go through, but the film is also incredibly physical. And at the midpoint in the film, there is a fight sequence that really sort of takes the film in a very different direction. And
Yeah.
I've spoken to sort of Zach and Charlotte and Neil about this because it's a 10-minute sequence that is it's powerful because you watch it and you think, well, this is going to be over now after 2 minutes, and then it hits 5 minutes, and then 10 minutes later. What was it like for you? I've spoken to them about it, but what was it like working on that scene from your perspective?
That was fun, to be honest. That was fun. We had a lot of rehearsals to be prepared for this scene because Neil wanted to do the master shot and to have everything in one angle. And I developed that it can happen in real life. And that was so interesting for me that it can happen that I can't spoil. So I can't make any spoilers, so I can't tell more. But to understand that some people can be still alive after something, right? And and that was very challenging scene for us from the impact and the emotions you needed to put in this exact scene. But that was my favorite scene. That was my favorite one, to be honest. I'm like, I'm very delicate in my private life. I'm also very complex, but that was kind of fun for me doing stuff that will never happen in my private life. Never. So that was like I was like a child that someone give toys and I can play. And all of us have kind of dark side inside of us, right? You need to understand your dark side and choose what wolf you're gonna feed. And from the psychology, emotional perspective, this is kind of fun that you understand that you in your real life won't react like this, but by doing what we did in that exact scene, it can happen. And that's the fun fact.
And is it strangely cathartic to do that, knowing that you will never do it in real life, but going, this is my moment to get that energy out. Is that something that's
Yeah.
quite enjoyable, for want of a better expression?
I don't want to sound like it was enjoyable, but in some way it was, because all of the emotions that we need to invent inside of us to build the tension and to to put into the choreography that we had rehearsals about was kind of from the different dimension, right? I can't express it with words. You need to feel it. That that you need to build the anger, that you need to build that something bad is happening right now, and you need to be your own hero. I can't imagine that that kind of situation is going to happen in my real life. There's going to be disaster.
And it's a very realistic sequence, you know, and it really is played in a film that is quite fantastical in some of its elements. That scene is relatively, well, not relatively, very brutal in its reality.
Yeah. That was a very brutal one, and uh, and but putting that scene into the middle of the movie, I think that was good to make, because the perspective of the audience is gonna change a lot, right? I don't know what was your impression watching the movie while you were watching the movie, but that was so long, so bloody in the same moment, but that was a shift.
There really is. The film is essentially a film of two halves with that. And that there's the lead up to that scene because you think the plot is going to go a certain way with your
Yeah,
character and with Zach's and Charlotte's. And this happens and suddenly it goes in a way that you
you
didn't,
didn't imagine.
know.
Yeah,
And that throws you off,
yeah.
which makes it so much more enjoyable, rather than what you'd imagined. It's suddenly you can't imagine what is going to happen next.
I think we made a lot of plot twists. Yeah, we made a lot of them, because from the beginning, when you're watching the movie, you think something and you are so sure that you know who is who, but in fact, while watching another minute of the movie, your mind is blowing, because you have no idea what's gonna happen next, right? That was what we well that was kind of fun for us to see and to hear from the audience that they didn't know what's gonna be next.
And no,
And for
definitely.
us, that's the big compliment.
Yeah, I mean it's the best compliment because
Yeah.
again, so many films are very generic, and you expect the plot beats to happen. But this, it got to that point halfway through, and I was like, well, I really don't know where it's going or who these characters are, and then everybody keeps shifting and changing.
Yes, especially I think the ending is quite interesting, right?
Yes, and I mean, again, without giving too much away, it must be great for you to be able to look at that character and where she begins, where she ends up, where she goes, and that journey, and the way it's left leaves so much more for the audience to imagine.
Y- every emotions that Evie has in this movie are real. Everything what it's going inside a movie is like she is very here and now, and she's not planning what's going to be next, right? And also it's the the here and now is very challenging also for her, because she knows exactly who she is, but she needs to do a lot of switch towards other people to do not show who she really is.
And again, a question without going into too many spoilers, but ultimately, do you think as a character she is who she begins the film as, or is she ultimately who she is towards the end, or is she really somewhere in between as a character for you?
I think she has a lot of faces. And what you see at the beginning, it's also part of her because she is sensitive because otherwise she no, I can't say this because I will tell more about the plot. Oh my God, it's so hard
I
to
know.
express and to tell like to do not share the plot. But I think she, as we said at the beginning, she's very complex, and she's not the type of person, as I also said, who's planning what to be next. But life pushed her to make some decisions. And what you're gonna see in the movie is totally her from the different perspective, but that's the character. This is this character. She needs to be sensitive, she needs to be dramatic, she needs to be devilish, she needs to be kind of angel, she needs to be very emotional, show her mental issues, like also Diana. All of us have kind of problems in this movie. And I think we showed it from the different perspective. So yeah, she's very complex. She is.
And sort of going back to you being an actor, and you get offered the role, Neil sends you the script, you read it, and presumably as you read the first 20, 30 pages, you have expectations of who the character is. What is it like for you as an actor and also as a reader when you're first reading that script as things unfold? It must be great knowing that you can stretch these muscles that you possibly weren't thinking of when you read the first few pages and thought you knew the character.
I was very curious about what's gonna be next on other pages, and I was very curious about what's her real story, which we're gonna know at the. My God, it's so hard to
Later in the film,
express
yeah.
without. Yes, yes, and because I want to share so much to go into the plot, but I can't, which is totally understandable. But I remember the moment when I read the script, and immediately I called Neil. I shared all my impressions with him, and we were talking about how to build this character to show her from the different angles, first of all, from the different perspective, from the different emotional perspective, but also from the details to show the audience what to put the light on, right? And when we start shooting, in my head, I had all of those details that I need to put light on and to remember what is where and how to build the tension of this character. And I suppose so, and I do believe that people knowing this and seeing this, especially when they're gonna watch full movie.
Yep, no,
Yes.
definitely.
And that was also what I want to share with you is that I felt so safe to work with Neil because he was so open for everything what I invented inside of my head. And he was also curious about what I feel about this character. And he was like a father to me, like kind of good friend that I can share everything. And he said, Amma, do what you want. I totally trust you. And I said also to him that I'm gonna do what I can to make this character complex because I know that I can trust you, that you won't hurt me in this project, right? Because sometimes projects are also very complex
Yeah.
and not so very. Sometimes there's a lot of kind of tough situations, but here in the Compulsion when we were filming, trust me, everybody who put themselves to this project made it with their all hearts. Charlotte, Zach, Neil, me, all the stunties, other actors, because we knew that we're making the same goal and we create something that we want to be proud about. And I think we are. I am proud of what we've done. And, we build kind of family. That's the most beautiful stuff and magical stuff when you filming something, that you create something, you building something, it becomes the part of you, but in the end, you need to say goodbye to all of that stuff. And that's tough sometimes because you know that you gotta come back to your private life, come back to your reality, and you made something magical and it's done. It will never happen again in that kind of thinking. Yeah.
And that must also be quite complex as well, and emotional when you're isolated. You're in Malta as a crew and a cast, and you're making it.
Sorry.
Oh,
My phone fall down. Yeah.
interesting camera angle, but but when you're away, in a certain location with a cast and a crew, you must again have that family feel that everybody's together and working on the same goal.
Yes, we you got, that you're starting a new chapter in your career. And I remember the moment when I moved to Malta for more than 1 month. I started knowing everybody, and I don't know if you were in Malta, but Maltese people are so open for you. They are very helpful and treat you as a part of family member, really. And it's every single moment when I were there, it reminds me of my hometown, of my family, because the similarities between the people are, there's a lot of them. So when I was filming Compulsion, from the first day till the end, I felt like I know them for ages. And that was marvelous. That was magical because we were so open to each other from the beginning of our work. And we built that our relationship through those months. And I remember the moments that we needed to say goodbye to each other. We had tears in our eyes, and that was very emotional moments for all of us, I suppose so.
It sounds. I mean, you sound like you had a very good time making the film and
Yes.
delving into the character, and the whole thing seems like so many layers of emotion and difficulty and complexity. It must have been a powerful and sort of fulfilling experience for you.
Yes, and every time when you're doing the new project, you developing something new also in yourself. For example, rehearsals with stunties was quite fun for me because that was new and I've never done it before. So I was every single moment I was like a child who was so happy that I'm gonna do it. Every fight scene because that wasn't who I am in real life.
Well,
And
Anna,
it's good from time to time to live the fiction, right? Yes.
of
Sometimes it's good.
always, especially in a movie like this. I don't
Yeah.
want to take up any more of your time because I'm fully aware you've probably got a very busy day talking about this or not talking about it as it might be. But it's been a real pleasure talking to you about a very interesting character and a very interesting film. So thank you.
Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your time. Thank you for you.
No,
Thank
well,
you.
well, thank you. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Movies in Focus podcast. You can download it wherever you get your podcasts, and I hope that you tell your friends about it. That's it for this time, and I'll see you at the movies.